Happy Kwanzaa, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year, everyone out there. Goodwill towards men to us all, Raven fans, Oriole fans. Thank you for joining us here on New Year's Eve. So, on not New Year's Eve, it's Christmas Eve. All ready for the new year already. Don't forget to watch us on New Year's Eve for and you're in broadcaster. But thank you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know tonight is a night of like we're celebrating and we're just relaxing if you're just spending time with your families. So I see the people that are already on. Thank you very much for joining us tonight here. Thank you for all year, frankly. This has been our biggest year in terms of numbers. Obviously, I'm not uh, big ESPN Shannon Sharp production, but this is obviously more people we've ever had this year watch Ravery Sports. We've had 20,000 people on the shorts. We've had a lot of people on our Rumble channel is getting bigger. We're in double figures as far as numbers, as terms of on our Rumble, on our Twitch, on our YouTube, Twitter, etc. So we not quite on Twitch yet, but on all of our rest of our platforms. Thank you so much for spending, especially tonight of all nights, with us here on the Ravery Sports Podcast. All right, so we're here obviously because we got games tomorrow, so we're going to go ahead and cover that as well. So let's go ahead and get this squared away. Genesis Notary Services, as you see it at the bottom of the screen, Genesis Notary Services /Facebook.com. In 2025, you can book time on our website. You need any notary services at all, we're here for you in the Shenandoah Valley area. We're happy to go ahead and help you out with that. RaverySports.company.site is the website. Definitely the app is coming very shortly. So we're going to head, hopefully by Super Bowl, we'll have an announcement about the app as well. So we're going to go ahead and get that squared away for you as well. Maybe expanding that as well as far as our reach, as far as our shopping sites as well. And also to see Charles Harris, wearelegalshield.com. If you need any legal assistance these days, and it's definitely greatly appreciated, definitely go ahead and go to Legal Shield. The value is tremendous. The value is tremendous for Legal Shield. It's fantastic stuff for you at all. So we will go ahead and get you squared away. All right. So go ahead and let's get to business here. So we had a game. There is no better game for the Ravens ever than to beat the Squealers. I gotta tell you that's that's it. It's always great this year. This was very convincing stuff on Saturday where the Ravens actually beat Pittsburgh 34-17 in M&T Bank Stadium, going into a tie now for the first place in the division. So the Squealers are playing Saturday as well, are playing on Christmas Day as well. We're going to know when we hit the field what the status of that. They have a big one against the Chefs. We're going to go over that one a little bit as well. Ravens going over big time here the last 2 weeks before the playoffs as well. Lamar, the MVP race is not over. I totally agree with you. Look at that. 15 for 23, 207 yards, 3 TDs to 1 pick. Bad throw, I thought, by Lamar. The 1 pick really was covered up by the defender. I think it was Patrick Queen. But really, the defender was blocking his way. He kind of was trusting the guy that there. Bateman didn't see him, didn't keep running the route. Ball was picked off by Mickey Fitzpatrick. That was probably the lone thing with that. Lamar was outstanding in this game. I thought the game plan by Todd Monken and the offense was terrific. Fantastic. You're having trouble. Lamar's having trouble. The only team in the league where really has trouble getting the edge and beating the edges didn't try that. Stay up the middle. Derrick Henry, run up between the tackles. Perfect. Outstanding game plan. Outstanding stuff, I thought, by Lamar, I think his best game against the Squealers here so far. You know, it's a good idea to give it to possibly a future Hall of Famer, Derrick Henry. 24 carries, 162 on the ground. Derrick Henry, let me tell you something. Not for Saquon Barkley's brilliance. This guy would definitely be in the MVP category conversation. I'm sure he's in the conversation for sure. Barkley, I think, is having, an all-time season, but I don't think 2 touchdowns against Pittsburgh. I think he's been fantastic, just absolutely fantastic all season long. Henry, I think, is look. So many teams could have had Derrick Henry in the off season. If you think about even Lamar too, nobody really wasn't a lot of teams really wanting Lamar. A lot of teams saying they were out, Atlanta, etc., out on Lamar, and all these two guys doing are just tearing up the league for a great season, even in spite of the problems. Zay Flowers gets 1,000 yards season for the Ravens. 5 receptions, 100 yards. He's definitely the number 1 receiver now. So no, it's definitely not Mark Andrews. He has a physicality on the field, which is terrific, I think. He's actually throwing guys to the ground. I see a little bit more of that Steve Smith in him, a little more of that Tyreek Hill. Not a tall guy, but he's got that physicality to throw guys off of him, to be as physically imposing when guys try to take him down. Tremendous speed, as we know, great route running, great hands as well. I think his hands are very underrated. Definitely you don't see a lot of drops or a lot of bad just with Zay Flowers. Fantastic. This is a John Harbaugh. Gotta love Kyle Van Noy. First of all, he's good in the run game. He sets the edge, which is why he's still in the league. So definitely not known as a great pass rusher. He's having his best season as a pass rusher, 10.5 sacks, getting 1.5 in that last game. Van Noy has been a godsend. I don't know John Harbaugh personally, obviously, but I know he likes a Kyle Van Noy better than he would like a Jadeveon Clowney. Like, freak athlete, fundamentally not as good. Great, kind of runs past the defense. Van Noy stays home, covers his assignment, makes the other guys have theirs. He's always a guy. I've noticed also, too, he's one of the quiet leaders. He's very vocal on the field. So definitely good stuff by Kyle Van Noy. Sierra's husband, Russell Wilson, 22 for 33, 217, 2 TDs, 1 interception. Russell does not do well against the Ravens. I see him with 1 bad pick six every time he plays. Last time I remember when he was in Seattle, it was Marcus Peters. It was Martin Humphrey getting him on this one. I don't know how I feel about Russell Lake in Pittsburgh. He's the argument I keep making for him. He's better than what was there before, right? Better than Kenny Pickett, better than Ben Roethlisberger was at the end. But I think about that's all they have. He's good with the deep ball. I think he's going to hurt people with the deep ball. I think that definitely showed without George Pickens in this game, the lack of the deep ball. He was able to throw the ball, I think, decent decision maker, was able to roll out, get some of the edge, make plays out of, but certainly not a Lamar Jackson in terms of special. Najee Harris, I don't get it, Steelers fans. He's a free agent, and I don't think you should waste your time spending big money on this guy. Again, like if this was the 80s, I keep making the point with Najee Harris, if this was the 80s, he'd be an outstanding running back. In football, we had fullback and your running back. He ran most of the time and all that. Runs over people, bowling ball. I don't think he's got good speed, not great. He doesn't catch the ball well out of the backfield, and the Ravens usually bottle him up again. 9 carries, 42 yards. He was a little better in the game before this against the Ravens. But the Ravens, they already know, like, this guy isn't well. They have more trouble with Jaylen Warren, who had about 50 yards in this one, but Najee Harris isn't the guy. Calvin Austin, I think he was the biggest recipient of the deep ball from Russell. 4 receptions, 65 yards for him in this one. I think the Steelers don't have great receivers. They don't have a great offense, period. I keep saying that. I'm not saying that just because they're the Squealers and I don't like them. I'm saying that because just looking at the evaluation of it, they don't have offense like that. They have decent coaching, I think. I think they have decent players. Decent is about where they live. decent about where they live. When they play a good defense like the Ravens, they're really struggling. Their pass rush, I think, was neutralized by the inside run. Highsmith, I think, had a better day than I think Watt did as well. Watt had the injury, but I think like they pay more attention to Watt. I think Watt, they're shifting three guys, and Highsmith, you have to give up something if you're sending three guys to the other side. Highsmith had a decent day. He had 1 sack. He created a lot of havoc on the edges, but the Ravens didn't focus on the edges. They knew that their tackles and everything maybe couldn't handle it, so they didn't go there. I thought, though, this was the best game from tackle to tackle that the Ravens had as far as their line, right? They did some things, but the Ravens scored 34 points. I think they held their own well in this one, and I think definitely the Ravens have absolutely put themselves in position to win the division with 2 more weeks. So what happened here? I just think the Steelers are not it. I think despite their record, I think they have some good guys on defense. I think their defense is good. I think they have a strong. It's not real creative, but I don't think you always have to be super creative when you have great players like Wyatt. Fitzpatrick is great. They did have some injuries. Injuries are costing them a bit because we're at the part of the season where injuries are playing a factor for everyone. But the Ravens just have a superior offense. Like you have Lamar, Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews. Their offense is superior, and they're going to win a lot of these games against the Steelers. Like the Steelers just don't have enough offense to keep up. The defense is good, it's really good, but it's not an all-time defense by any stretch. I think it's the strength of their team, but I think the Steelers have benefited. A lot of close wins. Experienced coach has been in a lot of these situations, but they've won a lot of close games. They've had some wins against teams that aren't very good. Nothing wrong with that, but they're about a decent playoff team. I don't see any deep run for Pittsburgh. The Ravens are definitely more of a dangerous team than the Squealers are. So 34-17, and we got a game on Christmas Day. Used to be the biggest day of the year with my dad when my dad was living to watch NBA. And now the NFL is coming in and showing the NFL on Netflix, the first ever game history in the NFL on Netflix, the biggest streaming service in the world. They paid $150 million, I think, for each game. So just to think about that, $300 million just for the rights to air NFL games. So they are going to go ahead and have this one. Ravens and Texans as well is going on. Ravens are 10-5, 9-6 are the Texans. How do we feel about the Texans? They're obviously have won the division, best team in that division, and not in a real strong division. I'm kind of like with them where it was with the Jaguars last year. I felt like they won the division. They're going to the playoffs, but I feel like I should be expecting more from them. They've had a lot of injuries. Stroud's regressed a bit, and they've had a lot of injuries. But let's take a look at us with that. How about those apples for Lamar? The MVP case, 37, 87, 37 TDs, 4 interceptions as well for Lamar Jackson. Fantastic stuff from not bad from a running back. I don't know what else you could say. I think the biggest case for Josh Allen, I think, is how the Ravens do down the stretch is going to matter. Because the biggest case for Allen is the record of the Bills compared to the Ravens. I think the Bills still might get the number 1 seed based on what happens the next 2 weeks. But I think the numbers match up for Lamar. There's also a little bit going against with Lamar Jackson because he's won it twice already. So there is a bit of a bias when a guy has won MVP already for a guy that hasn't won it. I think there's a little bit of room for that as well. I'm not huge conspiracy theorists on that. I could say us as fans are talking about it in the online and etc. Lamar couldn't care less who wins the MVP. He wants to win Super Bowl at this point. Look at Derrick Henry and those numbers. I think that's 15 TDs for Henry, I think. So I'll go ahead and get that graphic up, but this is out of this world. All the stuff with him wearing out is kind of insane. This guy's the most in shape workout warrior I've ever seen. 278, 1636. I think they were kind of resting him a little bit in the third quarter, playing Justice Hill. More of a note, not Derrick Henry. I think we're not going to have Justice Hill in the game tomorrow. So you are going to have Keaton Mitchell back in the lineup with Hill out with that nasty concussion that he had. So we are going to get Keaton Mitchell. But Derrick Henry, we know what he is. He's outstanding. Zay Flowers, question if he's going to play. It looks like he's going to be able to go. 71 receptions. He's got a chance to break the Ravens record for all-time receiving yards still, depending on what he does the last 2 weeks. 4 TDs. Zay Flowers has just been outstanding all season long. I think definitely he's one of the 10 best receivers in the NFL by a lot of people. I have no argument with that. None at all. I think what we've seen is a guy develop right before us as one of the better receivers in the NFL from one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. We talked about Kyle Van Noy. I think the pass rush is for real. I think this guy is play like a Raven all over it. Definitely a guy not paying him a lot of money, over 30, hungry to win a title, does a lot of the little things well. That's what I love about Kyle Van Noy. Not just a guy who's just happenstance. He's perfected his craft. Athletically, is he the best guy on the field? Not even close. But is he a guy that understands setting the edge, understands defensive calls, understands quarterbacks? What's the word I want to use? Understands quarterbacks. I guess I could see right there. Understands quarterback tendencies. There you go. Quarterback tendencies, absolutely. So that's what a Kyle Van Noy you're getting from him as far as that goes. So Kyle Van Noy is doing very well there for himself this season. The Texans, CJ Stroud on the field as well. Stroud, I don't think that's right with the interceptions for Stroud here. He's got 19 TDs. I think it's 11 picks. May have to update that. I think it's 11. I think it's 13. No, it's 11. So it's 11 picks for Stroud as well. People are saying it's a bit of a sophomore slump for him. I think the expectation, was high. I think he's still growing as a QB. He's had some issues as well. He's had a lot of injuries at receiver. So definitely keep that in mind. Still a young guy. Made some bad decisions. The protection in Houston isn't great. I think that's, to me, when I'm watching them, the biggest difference for last year, this year, where the line was really, really good. The line not quite as good. Tunzel's good still on the left side, but I don't think they have nearly the level of protection. I mean, they were getting really blasted in that KC game as well when I was watching that. So their protection is good. Joe Mixon, I think, is maybe one of the most underrated backs in the history of the league. Once again, at 1,000 yards, 11 TDs, outstanding season. Plug him right in. Definite upgrade for the Texans. Definitely a strategy they need to utilize with all their wide receiver injuries and the line issues. I think that's probably the reason, maybe not more from him as well. But they've kind of held it down. I think having him has been an upgrade for him. They haven't had to worry about their running game all season long. Last man standing is Nico Collins for the Texans. So Nico Collins, 60 receptions, 909, 6 TDs. Collins, I think, has been outstanding for them all season. They're supposed to have this great trio of wide receivers, and they've been banged up a lot. Tank Dell, terrible injury last week against the Chefs. He, like a football player, loved it. Caught the ball, he tore his ACL, MCL, couldn't even stand, but he got the feet in, even though he couldn't stand up for the touchdown. Doubtful he plays anymore next year, let alone the rest of this year. Obviously, that's out. But great stuff by Tank Dell, and tremendous catch, though, that well. Stephon Diggs is gone. They actually signed Deontay Johnson for this game. Some people think he's not going to play. I think there's a chance he might play. I think he absolutely wants to be on the field for this one. I think it's all possible, even though he just got there, got picked up on waivers. Interesting to see, funny how that worked out as well. I don't think the defense, I think the defense is a bit overstated. What's not overstated is their defensive ends as well. So you got Will Anderson, who was one of the top players in the draft just last year, 10 and a half sacks as well. And you got Daniel Hunter, definitely a free agent that they signed. Their pass rush is terrific. I don't know if you need the same strategy you had against Pittsburgh, maybe kind of keep inside. I doubt it because I think the Texans are a little less familiar with Lamar. We'll see it. But I think their rush ends are going to be a problem for the Ravens. I think that's probably the biggest strength of them. I don't love their linebacker secondary as much. Stingley is there. Darius Stingley is pretty good. I think their defense overall is decent, solid defense. I think it's like middle of the pack at top is, but I don't fear the Texans defense, but they do have great rush ends. Kind of like the Bengals when they get the defense rolling. They kind of go as far as their pass rush takes them. So their pass rush being an issue. Ronnie Stanley, we're going to X him this week, X Factor. Stanley, I think, has been good this year. He actually probably has worked his way into being the number one free agent at tackle in the NFL. Sonny say he's been that good this year. Funny enough, I thought this was his worst game last week. I didn't think he played as well as he had been playing as well. But good game by Stanley. I thought he's been solid for most of the year, held himself up well. They needed it. And look, you've had young guys on the other side. Interesting to see what his future is going to hold. But in this one, he's going to have to deal with those two outstanding rush ends that they have in the how you doing? Hello. All right. So, and Mrs. Ravery there interrupting the stream. All right. So, and also to Roquan Smith on there as well. Roquan, I think this would be a good time to see Roquan break it. This would be a good time for Roquan. You got a young quarterback in there for him to go ahead and lead. Short practice week, good time for him to go ahead, go forward. Looking for a good game here from Roquan Smith as well. What do I think happens in this one? I think this is going to be a little closer than you think. I don't know how sharp these two teams are going to be, frankly. I think there's going to be a lot going on. Lamar says, I don't believe him. He said he's not going to be in the locker room. He's going to be watching Beyonce at halftime. I think he's just talking. I don't believe that for a second. I do think Ravens do win this game. I think they win it 28-14. I don't think the Texas firepower is there anymore. I think they have issues on the line. I think the Ravens can exploit it. I do think they have issues in the wide receiver core. I think those are things. I think the Ravens has shown they can handle it. As far as the defense has been improved, and they need the game. I think the Texans don't need the game as much as the Ravens do because they're it's pretty much decided for them. I mean, they're going to be they've already won their division. They're going to be the 4th seed. The Ravens are still trying to win the division against the Steelers. Big business to take care of. So be interesting to see what happens there. There you go. All right. So we got that squared away. Ravens and Texans on Saturday. I want to say Sunday. Christmas Day, a Wednesday game. I picked a podcast day to be Wednesday because I figured I almost would never get a Wednesday game. And sure enough, we get a Christmas Day Ravens game to go over. So we're happy to go ahead and get that out of the way as well. All right. So we got NFL all weekend long, extra long weekend. So games obviously on Wednesday Going to Sunday. All right, the big five biggest games on the schedule that are not NFL games, that are not Raven games, rather, that are going on this weekend as well. So definitely, what happened last weekend? We kind of always go over that. Texans and the Chefs. Kind of what we're saying about the Texans is kind of chewing the game against the Chefs. Just kind of not enough against a really good team. Um, Look, you say whatever you want about Kansas City. The record is what it is. Like they've only lost one game. They've had a lot of close wins. Their offense is clearly not as explosive, or they're not taking as many chances. But they are, I mean, they are going to definitely look like the number one seed. Chargers big win getting over the Broncos. The Broncos still have work to do to get in the playoffs. I think the Broncos it's a miracle that they're even here. The Chargers, I'm not as surprised because Jim Harbaugh is there. They have an identity. They were able to score more points, though. They have have a very conservative offense. Gus Edwards, like a running game, but you're seeing Lad McConkey, some of these guys growing up right before us. Chargers actually getting the win there, getting in better playoff position. One of the best games all season, the Commanders and the Eagles last weekend. Jalen Hurts, they're going to need him for the stretch run. So I don't think they should abandon ship on the number one seed if you can get Jalen Hurts back healthy. That mattered. But Jaden Daniels is no joke. I mean, we know this. I mean, Jaden Daniels, this is Lamar Jackson 2.0. That's what it looks like. Guy who can run with great speed, run in the pocket, outstanding stuff from Lamar as well. So I thought that was fantastic as well. Seahawks are outstanding. Seahawks are outstanding, but they lost to the Vikings. I think the Vikings may now be the best team in the NFC. Vikings, their defense is for real. I think they're all season long, and they've been winning a lot of these close games, 27-24. Very difficult to go into the 12th man and win. So they were successful there, and pretty much the Niners are eliminated. Not their year over the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins, have some slim hopes of alive. Pretty much an elimination game. I think I'm not even sure the Niners were even alive when it started. I think they were eliminated by the Rams earlier. First game of the Christmas doubleheader on Netflix. The Chefs and the Steelers. Who do you hate more, Raven fans? The Chefs or the Steelers? In this one, you should be rooting for the Chefs because the Ravens have a chance to win the division if the Chefs are successful. I think the Chefs will be successful over Pittsburgh. I think their issues on offense are for real. I think they just can't, and with the issues, I mean Kansas City. They don't have any explosion on offense like they just once did. I think it's their line play is kind of suspect at the tackle spot. I think they moved Joe Tooney outside the tackle for a couple games. They don't have the explosion on offense. Their line, the protection isn't good enough. Their run game isn't good enough. But I think they seem to do enough to actually go ahead and win. It's more there than I think on the other side. The defense is really good. I think Chris Jones getting hurt is a matter because I think it's a defense. I think of Chris Jones and those other guys. Chris Jones, Trent McDuffie. I think that's outstanding. Their secondary, I think, is really good as well. The Squirrels, I think, are kind of what they are. I don't know. The thing that makes them win this game is all these games with these two teams are so close to the vest. What Kansas City's doing is what I watched Mike Tomlin Steelers do for years with Ben Roethlisberger. Win games by 3 points, by 4 points, by 5 points, by 12, like so many games close to the vest. Win games like that. Maybe the blood, a very bad team, but that's kind of what's happening in Kansas City. I think the Chefs continue to do it. They still have work to do too because they're still trying to get that number one seed. Buffalo is right on them. I think they actually go ahead and win on this game. So I think the Chefs actually beat the Squealers in this one. Here's a team actually on a real roll, and I'm talking about the Bengals. I mean, the Bengals have now can win this game, and I don't think they're locked for the playoffs, but they're still not dead yet. 7-8. Burrow has been terrific. I think like Ray fans tend to get mad that he gets more of a pass than Lamar gets, but the team is never as good. His defense isn't any good. I can say this: they've been scoring a lot of points lately. He's been overcoming it anyway, as well. Can they score against a decent Broncos defense that has been solid all year long? I think Burrow can score against anybody. I think there's four really good quarterbacks: Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, uh, Justin Herbert, and Joe Burrow. That's it. And I think Burrow is the guy actually that's going to go ahead and win this game. They're going to need it as well. The Broncos, I think, kind of are what they are. I'm kind of like more on the Minnesota thing in terms of what I thought at the beginning of the season. So the Broncos have decent defense. I think they have a good run game as well. Bo Nix, I think, might be one of the outstanding quarterback going forward. But I think the Bengals won a little bit more hungry in this one as well. Cowboys and the Eagles. Here's a team also, too, that's been on a bit of a roll. Like we kind of wrote them off, the Cowboys, going against the Eagles. I don't know if Jalen Hurts is going to be – I'm thinking that they're going to have Jalen Hurts in this one. So we're doing this a little bit early. He's still in concussion protocol. They're going to go against Kenny Pickett. Cowboys have been playing with a backup quarterback. Anybody knows how Cooper Rush has been winning games? So he's been actually got him back to the Cowboys where they're not. I don't think they get into the playoffs. Obviously, I think they've been eliminated, but they still could have a winning season. So interesting to see if Cooper Rush has made himself some money here going forward. Hey, throw the ball to CeeDee Lamb is important. I think the Eagles, even with the backup, can kind of get it together here. Saquon Barkley is just him having a great season. The Cowboys do look different with Parsons on the field. That's a whole different defense looking like it's on the field. But I think Barkley's a bit too much like the Eagles in this one, still playing for the number one seed, even though it's unlikely. This is going to decide a lot the next 2 weeks. The Packers against the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota, I think is the biggest shock in the NFL this season. They have possibly, if they can win this game, they have a shot to have the number one seed in the NFC going into the final game against Detroit, and they have to win against the Packers, who I think the Packers are Super Bowl worthy as well. I think this division is terrific. I mean, they've been killing the rest of the league. You got three teams in one division possibly getting the number one seed as well. Darnold, I think, should be a Pro Bowler next season, and he's going to get a big contract from Minnesota, I would think, or somebody next year. I think their offensive line is first rate. I think Aaron Jones has been fantastic. I think their Minnesota, their rush ends, Andrew, and I think their outstanding rush ends have been terrific for them. They have great pass rush in Minnesota. So I think I like them. I mean, I think I've been kind of doubting them all season because of where they came from. But they have been absolutely fantastic. I'm sorry, Jonathan Grinyard and Andrew Van Grunel. I think that's the name. So I think we got there. I'm still figuring out the name. I mean, this team is fantastic. And I think, obviously, the monster man, Justin Jefferson, maybe the best receiver in the entire NFL. We know that he is fantastic. I don't think the Vikings slow down. I think this might be the best team in the NFC with the Lions injuries and all that, etc. I like him. I like him against Green Bay. And no offense to Green Bay, who's been terrific. Jordan Love has been fantastic down the stretch as well. Two great teams in that one. And the Commanders, boy, they are so happy here in Virginia that we have a good Commanders team here as well. That was probably one of the best games you've ever seen all season long, if not the game of the year in the NFL, going against the Falcons this week. So you got two of the rookie quarterbacks, Michael Penix for Atlanta and Jaden Daniels for Washington. I'm going to talk a little bit about Penix. I don't know if this is wise what they're doing, frankly. I think, honestly, I think they're just they're ready to move on to Penix. They're anxious to get there. And I think they just kind of want to see it. And I know Cousins hasn't been great down the stretch. Somebody's going to be mad at me in the comments or whatever. I understand that. But this worked out with Lamar Jackson, with Joe Flacco. But I don't know if this is wise going to a rookie down the stretch for the end of the season with the Commanders as well. Commanders have been playing a rookie all season. Jaden Daniels, I think Jaden Daniels is terrific. Terry McLaurin, I got to say, I knew he was a good receiver, but watching more Commanders games this year because they've been better this year, I would say he's terrific in the red zone. I mean, just his getting his feet down in the goal line area. He is fantastic. He's not a great like separation guy compared to a lot of really good receivers, but he's terrific in the red zone and the green zone as well. But I don't think the Falcons win this game. I think the Commanders are on a roll. I think they keep rolling, and they actually win. There you go. Big five biggest games on the schedule that are not Raven games. So we will go ahead and get that squared away. All right. So enjoy the games. Obviously, extra long weekend. Games on Netflix, games on Amazon, games on Peacock. So get your streaming services ready. Now the NFL is streaming a lot of games here. All right, real quick. Let's talk Terps basketball as well. So Terps obviously successful in the last outing against the Syracuse in the Gotham Classic. I thought it was a little weird not seeing. You're good. It's down. It was a little weird not seeing Jim Boeheim, the legendary Jim Boeheim, not on the Syracuse sidelines when I played going against the Terps. But I did watch that game Saturday before the Terps games, and I got to tell you, the Terps, they're not in the top 25. That's wild. There's definitely a top 25 team. Definitely have a game here coming up against, I think it's UMES, Maryland Eastern Shore, HBCU, for that next game. They're going to blow them out by 50. They've been like these smaller schools. They've been just destroying them there as well. So the Terps, definitely a top 25 squad. They're actually beating good teams, beating Ohio State. Their only loss was to Marquette, very close, really rolling up Ohio State. Very close against, in Mackey against Purdue. It's there. I definitely think this is an NCAA level team, top 25. Queen is a top 25 NBA draft pick. So there you go. Maryland, definitely check that out this week. UMES game is going to be on the 28th, Saturday at 12 o'clock. Definitely check that out on Fox Sports as well. Streaming service. I'm not sure if it's the Big Ten Network or not, but definitely check that out. All right. I gave it a little bit of time because I ran over last week. I didn't get a chance to do managers, but we're a little deeper in the off season. We understand the hot stove is still going on. As far as that goes, a little bit slower this week. We're still waiting to find out what's happening with Corbin Burns. Lasardo, I think, was traded to the Phillies, going out, adding to that tremendous rotation as well. Last week we talked a little bit. Cody Bellinger going to the Yankees as well. Yankees having a busy offseason here, but what we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk about some of the greatest outfielders and pitchers of all time in the MLB history. So not just Orioles, there's Orioles on the list, but definitely let's talk about some of the greatest ones of all time that have ever played. Again, how I feel about it, the Hall of Fame now has just become ridiculous in MLB. You don't have some of the greatest pitchers all there as well. Not to mention some of the great Negro League players. I almost understand the Negro League players keeping the records of whatever I think they're, but you gotta. I really want to talk about some of the greatest players that ever played here, that have ever played. So we mentioned Orioles all last off season. So we're going to talk about some of the greatest ever in that. So last week I was going to get to managers, so I put it on here. Gave myself 5 more minutes. So who are some of the greatest managers that have ever been in the major leagues? I actually almost tried to keep Jimmy Leland off the list, but I can't do it. Jimmy Leland did more with less so many times in Pittsburgh than it was so impressive. Great on the margins. Actually, when he actually won a championship with the Marlins, when he actually got to the Marlins and he actually had more to work with. So outstanding stuff from Jimmy Leland as well. Hi, Dad. All right. So definitely some of the greatest. Leland, I think, was exactly what an owner would want or whatever. Had a tough situation in Pittsburgh. Had platoons on those teams. So I I don't know if the numbers bear it, but I could not leave Jimmy Leland off. I also had the same with Joe Torre. Joe Torre, everybody's gonna say, well, the Yankees had so much talent, blah, 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 blah. Not so much always. Joe Torre, when the Yankees got really good in '96, he had a lot of young players. Jeter, Posada, the core four. He had to bring those young guys up and actually get them to be a championship team. So their dominance wasn't just because of all the Yankee money and all the free agents and all that. They had tried a lot of that in the 80s and all that in the 70s, etc. Go ahead. They had tried a lot of that in the 80s and 70s, etc. So I think Joe Torre definitely belongs on there. Winning percentage, the modern day Tony La Russa. I think I have him for the Oakland A's because those dominant A's teams we had for so many years. But he was with the White Sox World Series, so many years with the Cardinals World Series. I think this was the sniper here, Tony La Russa. In a manager era like what we had, Tommy Lasorda, Bobby Cox, this was the analytical guy. This was the brains. Tony La Russa was the guy who was I think the best manager of the modern era as well. You want to go back further than that? You got Joe McCarthy with the Red Sox. I think he won more games than anyone else as far as the MLB. Way back at the turn of the century, the White Sox at the history. Casey Stengel, known for the Miracle Mets, so many years with the Yankees as well. More World Series championships as a manager. Great personality too. Watch videos of Casey Stengel. Kind of like the managers used to be a lot of now character actors in a lot of ways, and Casey Stengel was a great one of those as well. Left field. Now let's get started with this week's list. Left field. Barry Bonds is at the top. Carl Yastrzemski, I think, might be the greatest hitter. Some people say he's the greatest hitter of MLB history. That's saying a lot with the Red Sox, considering all the great hitters. But hitting 400 in a season that's a wow. I mean, that still hasn't even been done even in the modern era of offense. Is that rest in peace this week to one of my favorite players that was not a Baltimore Oriole, Ricky Henderson. Glove base stealing. When I was in Little League, I wanted to wear number 24, like Ricky. They didn't have 24. They said you got to wear number 3. So 22, I had 3 because that's in between 2, 4, like Ricky Henderson, greatest base stealer of all time, greatest trash talker of all time, maybe him or Reggie Jackson, I think was a fantastic hitter. Ricky, greatest leadoff hitter to ever play in left field. Not a terrific left fielder, in my opinion. Obviously, he had tremendous speed, run balls down, a bit erratic at times, but that's the only flaw with him. Ted Williams, you talk about Kyle Yastrzemski being a great hitter. Ted Williams was a fantastic hitter. Ted Williams, I think, you could argue these two. We could argue all day long whether Ted Williams or Stan Musial was the greatest contact hitters of all time. As far as both of these guys, really never. There was no such thing as being near 300. There was no such thing being below 300. They were tremendous contact hitters to the outstanding degree, outstanding defensive players as well for the time. So I think these were two of the greats early in baseball, two of the precursors. But Barry Bonds, there was no such thing. I mean, Barry Bonds, I think, I don't care what he was on. He was the best home run hitter of all time I ever saw. You could take half of his career, forget the stuff you saw with the Giants. I'm talking about the stuff he did with the Pirates, the first half of his career. He was an outstanding thing. Go with your mom. All right. Dad stuff there. All right. Barry Bonds, I think, was it's said that he's not in the Hall of Fame. That's a whole nother thing. I'm not going to go into all of that. But Barry Bonds, I think, was one of the greatest hitters of all time. Center field, Ken Griffey Jr. I think a natural, what they call it. The American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, his son Dustin, natural. Ken Griffey came in the league at 19 years old. Didn't know how to really do anything, but he did everything so well. That makes sense. Didn't look for pitches, didn't have train. His bat speed, see the ball, hit the ball. He had so much production. I don't think there was a more fun guy to watch for like a 5-year period in his 20s than Ken Griffey Jr. I think because of his injuries in his 30s, kind of young, that's why he doesn't hold more records. But I think Griffey was fantastic. These two are the most iconic Yankees of all time. Mickey Mantle, I think, like he was the guy I think probably ushered in the era of TV baseball. If there was a guy, Mickey Mantle was the guy where the Yankees, he kind of took over for the guy ahead of him, Joe DiMaggio, right? So, but it's kind of like some of you young fans maybe don't even realize, especially now with the internet, where baseball was a radio medium, was a guy where you couldn't listen to all the games, you couldn't watch all the games. You hear like guys in their 50s and 60s, who's their favorite player, they're going to say Mickey Mantle and Joe DiMaggio. These two guys were the best players on that great era of the Yankees, of that era in the 60s, early 50s, 60s, and all that. So outstanding stuff. Joe DiMaggio and Mickey Mantle. Ty Cobb, when the award is named after you, you were good. Obviously, Ty Cobb, the numbers are just staggering. Look, Ty Cobb, I think some people didn't like him as far as, he's kind of a myth as far as how big of a jerk he was and all that. But the stats don't lie. I think Ty Cobb, obviously one of the greatest center fielders of all time, but he wasn't as good as the say, hey, kid, Willie Mays. I don't think. Watch Willie Mays playing stickball in the streets of Harlem. It's an iconic video. That's all you need to know about Willie Mays. Catching the ball over his shoulder. It was unbelievable. Willie Mays, I think, probably was. I think he was related to Barry Bonds even as well, or his godson or something along those lines. But I think like Willie Mays, I think was the precursor to a lot of greats in the outfield. Right field's no slouch either. Roberto Clemente for the Pirates is that 5. I think maybe the greatest Latin baseball player of all time. That's saying a lot, especially with the Latin explosion that we have right now. Clemente, I think the speed, all-around player, closer to like a Jackie Robinson, not like a Ricky Henderson, just on the speed on the base pass, but did everything well out there in right field. Frank Robinson, I think he probably, you talk about how revered Clemente was as African American, as a Latin ball player. Frank Robinson, probably maybe the most revered African American player of that time as well. Frank was a tremendous hitter. He was the power of those Orioles lineups. He played with the Red, first guy to win win MVP in both leagues. Frank Robinson, former Orioles manager. Mel Ott with the Giants, you're going way back, definitely guy, turn of the century, so important that time in baseball. long time ago. Mel Ott, definitely the stats bring there. Number 2, I'm a surprise some of you. I'm going to say Hank Aaron, number 2. Hank Aaron, I think the all-time home run leader. Some people say he's a true leader, depending on how you feel about Bonds still. But Hank Aaron, I think, was just a massive home run hitter as well. But I'm going to put the Babe in front of him, the great Babe Ruth. Was he drunk all the time? I don't know. Was he really as fat as they say he was? I don't know. I know this. He was, we're sitting here today talking about it in 2024 because of what Babe Ruth did in the game of baseball. He was an outstanding pitcher as well. I think that's almost not talked about. Everybody talks about the home runs and the legend and what he did for the Yankees, etc., and all that. But he was a fantastic pitcher as well in his younger years. Couple more here. Let's go. Designated hitter at the bottom. These guys epitomize the position. This is exactly what you look for, all 5. Harold Baines, no cartilage in his knee for years. Harold Baines, I think, was an outstanding designated hitter for years. Exactly what you want. A vet who can hit for power, who can hit for average, who can do so many things. I think Harold Baines was well. Paul Monitor, he played a position for a while, but I think Monitor for years with the Brewers was a home run hitter. Hit for average, hit for power as well, hit lead off, hit in several different spots, hit very well. I love Paul Monitor, was terrific as a hitter. Shohei Ohtani, yeah, I have him third. I can't put him first quite yet, but I'm sure he's going to get there with the way he's going, what he's been able to do. I got no problem putting Shohei higher than that, than third. I think give it a few more years. We're going to do this list the way he's been going. He's going to be at 1, but not quite there. He's not there ahead of Big Papi David Ortiz. I think Ortiz is probably the best clutch hitter of all time at probably of certainly the 2000s era, 90s era. Maybe Derek Jeter was better, but Big Papi, as far as the position as well, nobody was a better power hitter, more effective than Big Papi David Ortiz. And the award is named Best Designated Hitter, is named after Edgar Martinez, and I agree with him. Edgar, I think, was a complete hitter. We just talked about Ken Griffey. We talked about A-Rod. We talked about that. The guy that they looked up to was Edgar Martinez. I think was terrific as well. Pitching. Clemens is not in the Hall of Fame. That's a crime. It's fantastic. Roger Clemens, I think, is one of the better pitchers I ever saw. The power was serious. Definitely a great power pitcher. One of the greatest power pitchers there ever was. Again, caught up in the steroid stuff, was a great pitcher. I don't know about nowadays if people would see him as that, because so many guys are throwing 100, etc. But definitely a power pitcher, even in his career. Bob Gibson was one of the greatest that ever pitched in any era. I got no problem saying that. You look at the wins, all these guys, Christy Mathewson, Cy Young, Walter Johnson, those records are never going to be broken. Never going to be broken. Cy Young, though, obviously the award is named after Walter Young, all-time winningest league. Christy Mathewson, outstanding. Bob Gibson, I think, could have pitched in any era. So obviously these guys were outstanding. Relievers, my favorite position on the field, just about. The closer. John Franco, I have at 5. I'll take John Franco. I think it was hard to pick a 5. The 4, I think, were obvious. Franco, but I'm taking him just on career numbers, stats, longevity. I think John Franco was closer for a very long time. The top 4 were very easy. Lee Smith, I think, was the all-time, as far as save leaders, easy All of Fame to me. I think the only thing he ever did wrong, he didn't really pitch on good teams always, but he was so productive no matter where he went. Played with the Cubs, the Expos, outstanding. Lee Smith was fantastic. Trevor Hoffman, I thought, epitome of a closer. That's Rick Vaughn, if you've ever seen him. Throws heat, great closer entrance through 100 miles an hour. I think Rick Vaughn, Trevor Hoffman, rather, was a fantastic pitcher for them. Dennis Eckersley, had it not been for Mariano Rivera, was one of the greatest things I ever saw. Dennis Eckersley didn't just throw strikes. He never threw balls. Like when he was closing for the A's. Like it was unbelievable to watch. Like anything out of the strike zone, if he threw a ball, it was like, what? Like just if he threw a 10 pitch inning, I mean, very common. His like his when he was closing, that it was 7 pitches, 8 pitches, and no more work. Rarely did he throw 20 and 15. That didn't happen. That Eckersley was extremely dominant. But when I saw Mariano Rivera, there's no question. Mariano Rivera was one of the greatest arms I ever saw. Just so dominant for so long as well. Even in his last year, closers kind of go up, down, fall off. Never the case with Mariano Rivera. So he was outstanding for so many years. I think he did get injured, I think in the next to last year. But Rivera, I think, was the greatest ever. Eckersley and Hoffman, I mean, were really good. But hate to have a Yankee there. But Dennis Eckers, but Mariano was there as well. Not as many Orioles this time around on this list this week as well. We did have Frank Robinson. I think was one of the greatest players that we ever saw as well. No, really pitchers. I think Jim Palmer was. If I was to do a list of like 20-ish, I think you might have Jim Palmer. Jim Palmer was really good for the Orioles as well when you talk about pitching. I love Greg Olson as far as the reliever. Greg Olson was probably the reason why. Greg Tucci Olson, 1989 Orioles closer. Definitely the guy I would probably the one of the first interviews I want to do if I ever get a chance to talk to Greg Olson is talk about how he threw that tremendous curveball he did as well. But I don't think they were quite as all-timers as well. But when we had infielders, you had Cal Ripken, you had Cal Ripken, you had Roberto Alomar. We had a lot more guys there. Orioles have had great all-time players, and I think the MLB has had great all-time players. So just want to take a shout out to talk about all-time greats, especially Ricky Henderson. Shout out RIP Ricky, one of the greatest base stealers of all time, greatest leadoff hitter ever. All right. Thank you guys. Feliz Navidad. We're going to see you tomorrow. Okay. After the Ravens game, we're going to go ahead and talk about that, and we will go ahead and chop it up for the Ravery Sports Podcast. You guys enjoy the rest of your day.